Exploring the trajectory of Israeli fashion from the late 19th century Zionists to our modern day fashion industry, which, as we know, is thriving because there's so much fashion and fashion tech here. Now the Israel Museum is featuring an exhibit that is literally making a fashion statement, especially with the co-curator who herself is a fashion statement. Please welcome Noga Eliash-Zalmanovich.
Yay.
I practiced. This is where I get thrown. Welcome to the show, and congratulations. I know this was a labor of love to get this off of the ground. How did the idea come about this kind of exhibit?
So this exhibit was actually quite unique because the museum was approached by Tamar Yovel-Jones. She's a key figure in Israeli fashion since the 60s. She studied here, she was a designer here, and then she went to be a head designer at Cavalli, Roberto Cavalli in Italy. She came back and she educated maybe a full generation of designers working in Israel today. And she said to the museum, you know, fashion exhibitions are so big all through the world, you know, like blockbusters and things like that. And the full story of an Israeli fashion from its beginning till now was never told. And the Israel Museum
said, it was just kind of one of those like, duh, why don't we think of this moment? So explain kind of the, you know, the trajectory of, you know, the oldest fashion to the, you know, more modern.
So when first of all, I have to say that we don't have a fashion department at the Israel Museum. And when we started working on it and the museum said it's a very good idea, you know, the Israel Museum is an encyclopedic museum. We have arts, we have Jewish life and culture, we have archaeology, and the museum started thinking, so how could we really approach this?
new themes and new genres to attract a new, you know,
So we're three curators. One, I'm from the modern art department, another is from the Jewish art and culture wing, and Tamar Yovel-Jones, and our chief curator, Daisy Rakach-Jibra, she's the heading of the project, and we set out to understand what is Israeli fashion. Is there Israeli fashion, and how could we approach it? The main problem was just getting all the items together. We have, because there isn't any archives. We have 150 items that we're now showing. Oh, and now I see that.
Most of these from people like that just had like private collections and they donated it, or how did you find it?
That was actually the most laborious job of them all, just locating the things themselves. And it's really interesting about a culture, what do you decide to preserve and what's not. We went to designers and none of them kept the things. They said, oh, that's from the 60s. I haven't kept it. And it's, you know, we went to Guido.
It's so fun. I have things that I've had like since high school that I've just kept because I like it. And it's like I've seen it come back in style like several times in the past, you know, couple decades.
It's true.
So, okay, so explain kind of how the fashion, you know, has evolved. Like, what do you think people are going to kind of walk away with after? I mean, obviously it's very subjective.
It's very subjective, but first we wanted to understand when can we start talking about fashion in Israel. And we decided that we'll do it the first time there was ever written in the newspaper about fashion. And the first one ever to write about fashion in Israel was Chemda ben Yehuda. She was the wife of Eliezer ben Yehuda, the reviver of the Hebrew language.
And the one who actually finished the dictionary after he died.
She did it in 1904. So really we can talk about fashion really, really early on. And the most...
Was it shtetl fashion then? I mean,
it is not shtetl fashion. It's more a fashion of you know, this is a country of immigrants mainly. And coming to Israel,
you all come from different cultures, so it's not like one style.
One of the questions was what kind of a fashion or what kind of a look this country will become. I mean, what should we wear? And how should we look? And what should we project? And I think something very important about the exhibition is what comes across is not only fashion and fashion designers, is actually the history of Israel itself.
I mean, and it is exactly. It is such an interesting way of looking, you know, looking at it. And from now, you know, like how much do you have that's like from modern, you know, day designers? Because there are so many now. I mean, with the fashion tech and the Shankar and all of the great schools, like Israeli designers are really now, you know, crossing over to an international stage.
Right, it's true. And what we decided to do is to treat the exhibition in not in a chronological theme, but mainly in a genealogy. And to understand that things were done 50 years ago, and then another fashion designer did it maybe 40 years ago, both relating to the older generation designer, but also relating to the same themes. It's thematic. Throughout the exhibition, we talk about the Holy Land and its inspiration, both holy and land, you know, the landscape itself. We're watching the sea right now. One of the major inspirations for Israeli designers was the ocean itself, the materials of the land, materiality, and the cultures coming to it.
Right.
You know,
fantastic. We're out of Noga. Thank you so much. Of course, we're out of time, but anyway, you explained it so well. Like, people are going to go see it, and I will try to get to Jerusalem as soon as I can.